Hello, I'm Maciej, Mikos, and you're watching News in Depth. Last weekend, so several important sporting events. The Polish tennis team triumphed in the United Cup. Robert Lewandowski scored for Barcelona and contributed to another trophy for his team as Barca beat Real Madrid 3-2 in the Spanish Super Cup. And Kamil Stoch made his last jumps in Zakopane as he's nearing the end of his professional career. And Klaudia Zwolińska, who competes in the whitewater canoeing, was voted Polish Sportswoman of the Year 2025. So we'll discuss all these events with Jon Carter, our very own sports correspondent. Jon, let's begin with the remarkable success of the Polish tennis team in Sydney at the United Cup. So Katarzyna Kawa and Jan Zieliński secured the final victory for Poland by beating the Swedish team in mixed doubles, but it was the effort of the whole team. Could you tell us more about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's a fantastic achievement from the Poles. So just for anybody who's not aware exactly how the United Cup functions, so you have a team of women's singles, men's singles and the mixed doubles, and you have a 3-match tie where two countries face off against one another. And, you know, Poland really won, let's say, the hard way. So they went through a group that defeated the Netherlands, Germany, went through to the knockout phase, saw off Australia, United States, and finally Switzerland in the final. So it's quite a significant achievement, and you know, I think this has kind of been overdue because actually they lost the final both in 24 and in 2025.
Yeah,
so
3 times the charm, right?
Exactly. So I think they've been edging closer and closer to this, and it does represent something. It tells us that actually, of course, all the media attention tends to go towards Świątek, and kind of rightly so, but actually, there's a lot of strength and depth in Polish tennis across the board.
Mm-hmm. Now, whose performance at the tournament would you especially praise? Iga Świątek, Hubert Hurkacz?
I think Hurkacz is the standout figure here. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I'd sort of single him out in this particular instance is because it's quite remarkable. Over the last 7 months, he's been out of action. You know, he had surgery all the way back at the end of last summer. And yeah, he's pretty much not played until the beginning of this year. He came back and he looks great, and that's really exemplified by the fact actually the world rankings came out this week. Now, if you don't play, you drop all the way down the rankings, and he dropped to 83. Just a week passed and he's up to 53. Hurkacz is a top 30 player comfortably, and I think it's great to see because frankly his career is constantly being slowed down by injuries. So I think if he can just get a bit of momentum together, we could really see the real Hurkacz, and this is a guy capable of even pushing into the top 10. Of course, mention to Zielinski and Kawa, who were also great, mm-hmm. And we should mention, this is a pair who don't actually play on the tour together. They just team up once a year for this United Cup. So
amazing, yeah,
really a formidable duo that they created here, and there was a real understanding. And very often it came down to that final match in the knockouts. It was 1-1 against Australia, United States and Switzerland, and they came through for Poland.
No, I don't know about the rest of the team, but Iga Świątek is definitely staying in Australia as she'll compete in the Australian Open in about a week, 2 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, about a week or so. Mm-hmm.
All right. So it's the only Grand Slam that she lags in her career as a professional tennis player. Now, what are her chances?
Yeah, I think her chances are very good. Let's remember, if we recall from last summer, people always said, Wimbledon was just it was very unlikely she'd ever win it, and there was very little expectation around it. Grass doesn't suit her game, that's not her style. And she was having, by her own high standards, a very poor season. And almost kind of out of nowhere, she won Wimbledon. And so now with Australia, it's flipped the kind of narrative on its head a little bit. Oh, her game's not suited to this or that surface. Now, what people have always said about the Australian Open, well, hard court, yeah, that kind of suits her game. But in Australia, the court is that little bit... it's a little bit faster, which doesn't necessarily suit her game. She likes that slightly slower court where you can really get that top spin going. And but as I said, like Wimbledon has shown that she's becoming more flexible over time, and that it doesn't necessarily, she's not dictated by what the surface is for her to, draw out a great performance. So I think she's definitely one of the favourites, and she certainly shouldn't be discounted. One thing may be slightly counting against her. We have to remember it's summer in Australia at the moment. So you're looking at, 30, upwards, possibly even 40 degrees on court if they're playing in the middle of the day. Could count against her. Some of the other players from warmer climates, they're going to be better adjusted to that. But, I'd certainly...
Well, remember that she's already there in Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. She's
adapting to
She's acclimatising, that's very true, yeah. So, she stands a reasonable chance, absolutely.
Right. Now, we're used to Iga Świątek dominating not only tennis courts, but also Polish media. But this time, however, someone else gained the main trophy. The prestigious Sports Personality of the Year award went to slalom canoeist Klaudia Zwolińska.
Yeah.
Could you tell us more about her achievements in 2025?
Absolutely. So I think the awards on Saturday are primarily acknowledging her achievements at the World Championships in Australia back in October. And I think the most significant aspect of this is that, she won two golds and a bronze. And no athlete, man or woman, had ever won 3 medals, individual medals at a World Championships. So number one, that's hugely significant. On top of that, she won gold in the C1 and K1. So just to clarify, C1 is sort of the canoeing, where you have the single blade, and the K1...
It's kayaking, I guess.
The double blade, yeah.
All right.
So simple as that. But yes, as you suggested, it's on the white water, so it's the sport where they're kind of weaving in and out of the gates. And let's be honest, it's not a big sport in Poland, and actually globally it's not watched by huge numbers of people, and it's one of those sports that kind of comes to the fore typically during the Olympics, and kind of has its time in the spotlight then before kind of slightly disappearing again. But I think what really kind of captured people's imagination this time is perhaps they weren't quite aware of what a significant achievement it is. So first of all, let's just say that how does the awards work? Well, the judges create a list of 25 nominees, and then it goes to the public vote. This is whittled down to a final 10, and then on the night, which we're back on Saturday, the public again are voting for it. And, the TV programme is then kind of previewing and giving a little context as to why these sports people, what they achieved this year. And I think this kind of gave people a bit of a clearer idea. Whoa, actually, this woman really achieved something significant. And, whilst, Świątek won Wimbledon, that's amazing, and Lewandowski scored back full of goals, and Kubica won 24 Hours of Le Mans, what she did was unprecedented.
Well, let's listen to Klaudia Zwolińska herself talking about her remarkable success.
There's one thing I want to tell you about my career in sports. Before I won the medal, I worked hard to find sponsors and partners. I pounded the pavement, telling people that I wanted to fight for an Olympic medal and that I had a chance. Nobody believed me. Nobody took me seriously. That started to change a bit once I won my medal. I made the decision that I would do everything I could to draw attention to my discipline and kayaking in general. And I've been successful. Look at where we are today.
So where are we today with Polish kayaking and canoeing? Is this discipline really gaining in popularity in Poland?
Honestly, not particularly. I mean, if it's the issue is there's not a lot of places to go whitewater canoeing in Poland, and as with many of the smaller sports in the country, you'll find a lot of the top athletes from those disciplines quite naturally come from the areas where it's the one or two areas where they have the facilities. So yeah, she's from the south of Poland, and there's a particular whitewater course in Krakow, Kolna, which is quite famed for it. Has the best facilities in the country, and but it's achievements and recognition like this which kind of elevate certain sports. It gives it this boost. Now put it in the context of the winner from the year before, so Alexandra Miroslav, the speed climber who won the gold at the 2024 Olympics. I go to climbing centres from time to time, and I can say before it was just purely the climbing wall, and now increasingly these climbing centres have a little area where you can race against the clock. And so it shows that this interest from a sporting figure has kind of created an elevated interest and pushing the sport forward, and more people want to participate. So I would suggest, whilst it's not hugely popular at the moment, although the disciplines of kayak and canoeing, a lot of people go, just for fun in Poland, the actual kind of racing against the clock, I think we are going to see an uptick in popularity. Right.
Now, canoeing is definitely one of the not one of the Winter Olympics disciplines, and the games kick off in about a month, less than a month, in Milano Cortina, right? In Italy. So, what about Polish medal hopefuls?
Yes, right. Well, let's be honest. It's not. There isn't a long list of genuine medal hopefuls. I think we can single out a few disciplines. I think that Poland's looking strongest in the speed skating. So we have Wladimir Simeruni, who's probably the best prospect, looking...
World champion runner-up, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, correct. So, I mean, he's looking well-placed for at least a silver. But there is also Damian Jurek, who's also well positioned. Actually, funnily enough, going back to what I was saying before about Zwolinska coming from Małopolska, where they have the good facilities. Jurek is also from the home of speed skating, Tomaszów Mazowiecki. So it's kind of, you can see how the facilities are benefiting there. But anyway, so Jurek and Semiruni and the mixed relay. That's probably the three where there's decent hopes of a medal. Aside from that, there is the snowboarding. So Król-Walas, Alexandra Król-Walas, female snowboarder. She's been around a long time, a veteran now. I think this will be her last Winter Olympics. She does have a reasonable chance. In the men's, Oskar Kwiatkowski. Also, he's a bit of a wild card, one of these sort of athletes who it's, maybe he won't get through qualifying, or maybe he'll pull out a medal. It's kind of all or nothing. Now, traditionally in Poland, for a long time, ski jumping has been the winter sport.
At least for the last 25 years.
Absolutely. But now, unfortunately, that's really in decline. And there aren't any medal prospects, So, yeah, I think we're kind of looking towards these other winter sports now as potential prospects of perhaps...
Jon, is the whole discipline in decline? Because, as I've mentioned in the very beginning, Kamil Stoch is about to finish his professional career, so no one there to fill in his shoes.
Yeah, I mean, Kasper Tomaszak is a very good young ski jumper. He's only 19 years old, though, so I think it's too much to ask for him to fill the boots of greats like Stoch, Kubacki, etc. And those guys I think it's going to be certainly for stock, it's going to be their final Winter Olympics. You know, they're in their late 30s now. So I think for the time being, there's going to be a bit of a lull in ski jumping, which leaves a potential gap in the kind of winter sports Polish market, we could say, for a new dominant winter sport. So from what I've seen, I think there's a bit of potential for speed skating to fill that void, which, you know, for a long time would have been unthinkable. Ski jumping was enormously popular in Poland through the 2000s, early 2010s, you know. As you well know, Maciej, it was just the whole country would just almost stop on a Sunday to watch these events. And because there was Adam Małysz and later Stoch, etc., was such dominant figures and enormous sources of national pride. But with that in decline and a lack of actual genuine hopes of having a champion, I think speed skating could be well positioned. It's a lot faster, it's more dynamic. I think it's a bit more of a televisual experience to view and get excited about. And certainly speaking to some of the speed skaters, they think that they are well positioned to fill the void, not only because their quality, but the sheer quantity of top speed skaters coming through. And of course, you know, Poland doesn't have the same winters as some of, you know, Scandinavian countries, etc. Well, of course, with speed skating, you can kind of control the variables a bit. So with the indoor speed skating, it kind of levels the plane a little bit.
Right. Lastly, let's talk about Robert Lewandowski. Robert Lewandowski's 37 this year. He'll turn 38. Kamil Stoch, whom we talked about, before will be 39. So is Robert Lewandowski also about to finish his professional career? He's just secured the victory for Barcelona over the arch rivals, Real Madrid.
Yeah, which, you know, he's playing for one of the best teams in the world, and he's still scoring a lot of goals, and he's not looking out of place. So, you know, he's still very much at the top of his game. I think it would be very surprising if he chose to end his career now. You know, he's in fantastic shape, he's still playing well. It would be a huge surprise, though, if Barcelona did renew his contract. We should say his contract ends in the summer.
And John, to sum up, isn't it better to finish your, you know, amazing football career playing for Barcelona rather than going, you know, to United Arab Emirates or something like that?
Yeah, you know, it depends how you sort of perceive what you have to offer and how you want to be remembered. I think you're thinking in terms of, would it kind of tarnish a legacy if you played for a lesser club afterwards? Well, we can look at the example of the other, you know, top world players.
Cristiano Ronaldo.
Messi, you know, they've gone off to lands outside of Europe and, you know, they've carried on their career. If Lewandowski doesn't continue at Barcelona, very likely, there are several clubs who are definitely going to be interested. Well, one of which is AC Milan, who've shown a lot of interest. And in Italy, the game is a little bit slower, and clubs like Milan especially, they have a lot of much older players, and Italy has a slightly different attitude to the older players, a lot more accommodating for them. So that's a potential. One of the most interesting ones is potentially going to the MLS in the United States, and there were a lot of rumours about Chicago Fire coming in for him. And obviously there's a kind of, you could imagine the fit there with all the
Polish diaspora.
Exactly, over in Chicago. And as you mentioned, over a lot of clubs in the Saudi Pro League have also shown interest. So I'm not sure which direction he's going to end up going in, but I think, judging by some interviews he's given recently, he thinks he's still got plenty to offer, and I think we'll see him, going on the pitch for another couple
And
of years.
that's good news, especially for the Polish national football team. Jon Carter, sports correspondent at TVP World, was a guest this afternoon. Thank you very much, Jon.
Thank you very much, Maciej.
And thank you for watching and stay with us for more interviews here on TVP World.